You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
I don't understand how he's able to get away with the things he gets away with, breaking the law, the emoluments clause, taking bribes, blackmailing people. He's a criminal con man. And if you grew up in New York, as I did, you knew this your whole life. We watched his planes get repossessed off the runway at LaGuardia. We watched him try to sell steaks and cologne in a fake university, steal money from charities that his family can't even have a charity anymore in New York City, in the New York State, because they had stolen money from kids' cancer charities. There's no way you can look at the facts about this man and believe in him still. You have to have willful blindness.
Donald Trump once stood on a national debate stage and mocked a woman, saying, "Only Rosie O'Donnell." It wasn't just an insult, it was a warning shot. Rosie stayed silent. Until now, she's back. And this time, she's not laughing. On live television, Rosie O'Donnell tore through Trump's carefully constructed persona. She called him out. A fraud, a con artist, and the most dangerous liar to ever hold office. With calm precision, she dismantled the myth of the self-made man. She dug up the history he tried to bury, not out of revenge, but armed with receipts. And now, the empire of lies is shaking, because what she revealed is not petty, it's prosecutable. And if America's paying attention, this could be the beginning of the end for Trump's dirty political era.
Because they sold him as America's biggest successful businessman, and he had been bankrupt 6 times. And he had lots of charges of sexual abuse against him. And he is, known for lying and for corruption. And he had a charity that he and his family now can never do a charity again in New York because they stole money from children who had cancer.
And this is all fact.
All you need to find out these facts is a computer, people. I am not an investigative journalist. I simply lived there my whole life. And in New York, where he grew up as well, we're around the same age. I'm 63, he's 107. Is that what he is? I'm not sure.
Rosie didn't stop at calling Trump a con. She exposed how he pulled off the biggest deception in modern political history, from fake wealth to reality TV fame. He sold himself as a titan, but behind the curtain, he was a ticking time bomb. She laid it bare. He's been bankrupt more times than he admits, propped up by his father's fortune, never proven on Forbes. He's not a builder, he's a borrower, not a leader, an illusionist. And America bought the act. Rosie warned, if someone this hollow can rise this far, our democracy is hanging by a thread. Ignore this again, and there may be no country left to save.
Unreal. And for me, in 2006, when he was just a embarrassment in New York, nobody respected him in any way. Forbes never would put him on the richest people list because they couldn't verify his income because he was often broke. He's a con man, period. And if you grew up in New York like I did, you knew that. But he got on that show, and Mark Burnett, the producer, taught him that if you tell a lie long enough on TV, people will believe it, just how they do Fox News. That's not a news station, that's an entertainment station. And they were fined millions of dollars for lying to the American public.
She pulled back the curtain on the media circus that created Trump's image. The Apprentice wasn't just a show, it was a smokescreen. He wasn't running a boardroom, he was running a script. Networks didn't just air it, they glorified it. And once Trump started believing his own reruns, the lie became his truth. Rosie called it what it was: psychological warfare, turning voters into viewers, truth into entertainment, and corruption into ratings. This wasn't a mistake. It was media manipulation at its most dangerous, and it worked. America gave him the nuclear codes. If you still think it was just a show, you're stuck in episode 1. Rosie's message is clear. We're all living inside Trump's unscripted horror show.
And it seems very strange to me that the President of the United States has so many friends who are sexual abusers. And people have just really had enough. They've had enough of a president who separates families and puts babies in cages. You know all of the catchphrases. Every day he does something worse than the day before. And he tops it and tops it and tops it. I believe that Trump is loathed in America, that people are embarrassed and ashamed of who he is, and that come election day, we're going to stand up at the polls and let him know. And unless he goes in and has the Russians kind of fix it like he did last time in 2016, we're going to see him gone. And that's what I'm waiting and hoping for, and hoping that people across the country are inspired to use their own voice in whatever way to get people to know that this country is worth fighting for.
Then came the moment that made the room go still. Rosie recalled a Trump press conference where he forgave a teenage girl for kissing another girl. Meanwhile, his own history of sexual misconduct allegations went unmentioned. Rosie didn't hold back. She said it looked like a pimp parading a victim. It wasn't a joke. It was a portrait of hypocrisy, so disturbing it made the audience squirm. Trump, she said, isn't just corrupt. He's dangerous in ways America still refuses to confront. And when a predator plays priest, you know the system is broken. Rosie's words weren't sensational, they were surgical. And with every truth, she sliced deeper into Trump's fake morality play.
Well, he is a cruel, criminal, and mentally unstable man. And Duty to Warn was a book that came out when he was first in office. Psychiatrists across the country who don't ever really diagnose people that they don't serve personally came together and made a book, Duty to Warn, to tell the world what a narcissistic, mentally ill person he is. And I think he's the worst thing that ever happened to the United States, and his cruelty knows no bounds. And when he is upset and humiliated and embarrassed, he has no control and he goes apeshit. Can I say that?
She didn't just talk politics. She talked trauma. When Trump won in 2016, Rosie says she spiraled into a darkness she barely escaped. Why? Because for millions of Americans who've suffered abuse, Trump wasn't a president. He was a trigger, a symbol of power without consequence. She called it national PTSD. This wasn't about losing an election. It was about losing safety. Rosie made it personal, and in doing so, made it universal. Trump's power isn't strength. It's a threat. And if he rises again, millions will fall into silence, fear, and despair once more.
Can you explain to me, though? I cannot believe that every Republican congressman or woman, every Republican senator is stupid.
Well, they're not stupid, but they're definitely afraid of him. People in America are afraid of him. They're afraid to stand up to him, against him, because, and when I did on The View in 2006, I remember Joy Behar saying, you're not going to say that out there, because he had a press conference right before we were live, where he had a teenager, Tara O'Connor, who was Miss Teen USA. She had kissed a girl in the Village, and they took a picture and put it on all the newspapers. And he made her do a press conference where she apologized. And it looked to me like a pimp and a prostitute. And I said that on the air. And then I proceeded to list facts, not hyperbole, just facts about who he was and what he did. Bankrupt all these times, money from his father, not a self-made man, can't quantify his riches on Forbes magazine. I just said facts, and you would think that I called his mother a whore. He went insane.
What made it all worse? Not Trump's cruelty, but the silence that followed. Rosie called out the cowardice. Republican senators who flee questions about Epstein. A Supreme Court that buries evidence in the dark. And a government that tiptoes around a con man tearing up the Constitution. She said the problem isn't ignorance. It's cowardice. These people aren't stupid, they're spineless. They don't fear justice. They fear Trump's tweets. And every day they enable him, corruption becomes more normal. If we don't name it complicity, then we're just watching from the seats as America's final act plays out. Rosie's warning is loud and clear. The clock is ticking.
Because of him, I read Project 2025. That was pretty much the foundation of what he wanted to do. And I said, I have to get out of here. And I left before the inauguration on purpose because for 20 years, he's been using me as a punchline in all of his jokes.
I know.
And he's a very unbalanced individual. And it's very dangerous to be in his target range. And for 4 years when he was in last time, it was not a good time for me. And I have a little child who's 12 who has autism. And I have to be on top of my game. You know, I have to be mentally and emotionally there and present. And I didn't want to be distracted by him or have him play such a major role in my reality. So I said, where could I go? And this was the only choice for me.
Share and subscribe for more bold content. Thank you for watching.